Would I be an idiot if I left my family for a new one? When my mother was young, she had a son, Andrew. The father was never in the picture. A couple years later, she met another man, married, and had another son, me. They divorced a couple years later because he only treated me like a son and acted like my older brother literally didn't exist. A few years later, my mother meets the man who actually becomes our family's dad. They marry, have a child, Henry, and we become a happy little family. This man adopted my older brother and I, 10 and 8 at this point, and Henry never even knew we were adopted. My parents were stricter than most. My father was a U.S. Marine, so it kind of came with the territory. Around high school my life takes a turn. My parents begin offering things to my siblings, but not to me because I don't spend time with the family. If I do spend time with them, they purposely don't offer anything. Because I'm there, I became Henry's personal playmate. If I say no when asked, our parents made me play with him anyway, because he's 8 and that's my job. In junior year, I was asked to wash my father's truck. I did an absolutely awful job, and my father as punishment said I couldn't have a license until I was 18. They bought Andrew 2 cars and Henry 1, but sold mine and spent the money while I was in training. They sent Henry to private school. They spent all the money they claimed was going into my savings over the years. After training, I moved to Rodeo. A childhood friends, an extremely close friend, family, the Aarons, lived there and took me in as if I was their own blood. I was struggling to deal with other humans in the workplace as an adult, as a kid. You could just ignore other people, but my mother and father never prepared me for when I couldn't, and the parents of the Aarons provided me advice whenever I asked. And sometimes when I didn't, to help me deal with the adjustment. They showed me how to properly deal with conflict and disagreement, how to do finances, how to showcase my natural strengths in the workplace, showed me affection, something that I thought I'd had as a child. But in hindsight, definitely didn't have enough after reaching my teens. I've been with the Aarons for almost 6 years now. The way they treat their kids was absolutely mind-blowing to me. The kids joke around with the parents, and they do things together as a family. The Aaron children and I introduce each other as family. When someone asks, really, my, now, siblings always respond so naturally it's as if I've always been here. I live with them. I celebrate holidays and birthdays with them. I fight with them. But at least now I know how to make peace with them too. This has only driven a deeper wedge between my mother and I. My father didn't hurt me purposely, but never stopped my mother. My brothers, while not perpetrators, were benefactors. Would I be the idiot if I walked away entirely and completely embraced my place as an Aaron? Comments before the update. Not the idiot. I was taken under by my husband's family when we were teens. Like you, they pretty much taught me how to be a self-sufficient, independent adult. I truly owe them my life. I didn't have good parents, but I was lucky to find a good family. I consider them my family. You can also choose your own family. Not the idiot. Remember, there is a difference between family and blood. One cares about you and shows it and treats you as someone important to them. The other happens to share some level of DNA with you, often falling back on that shared quirk as an excuse for poop behavior too and calling it family. It's not. Update. I've received a couple of messages asking for an update on my life after my first post, but an update would have been incomplete at that point. It also took me another good month to work up the courage to decide to ask the Aarons. Even after being told it wouldn't be morally wrong to do so, the irrational fear of rejection still weighed on me. I asked the Aarons early to mid-May for their permission to change my name. They were excited and happy to take me in, officially, but noted they were not looking forward to the drama it would cause with my biological mother. I legally changed my name to Aaron in late May, and spent the following 2.5 weeks changing it across all my identifications and wherever the government or my work would need me to update it. That is all complete, and I am now 100% an Aaron legally. My biological mother found out mid-June, after I'd finished changing all my social media accounts to match my new name. This was despite none of my biological family being friends on any platforms, and my pages being set to private. There were a couple days of her throwing a hissy fit, attempting to contact the Aaron parents to yell at them via social media, how she feels betrayed, and it really hurts, etc. I put an end to her contacting them. She hasn't contacted myself or them again since I made it clear she wasn't to attack them over my decision. I've never been happier. Thank you to everyone who provided feedback to my first post, and to the people who messaged me to let me know they were sincerely invested in knowing how my situation turned out. Not the idiot. I'm very happy for you. Congratulations. Just something to think about. You may want to make sure that the Aarons are listed as power of attorney if they did not officially adopt you. If you are medically incapacitated and in a coma, your parents would have medical power of attorney automatically unless you have something set up. Not the idiot. Were you aware that there are adult adoptions in the US? You could legally become a part of the Aaron family. Even if you don't get adopted, consult a lawyer to ensure that if something happens to you, your bio family does not have next of kin status. Congratulations on making the family of your heart official. Should Opus have changed families like clothes? Let me know in the comments. Am I the idiot for not inviting my best friend on a girls' trip? I, female 22, and my girls go on a girls' trip every December since we all have breaks from uni. We're a group of 6 girls and have been doing this since we were 18. We weren't able to go last year because of COVID. My best friend, female 21, has a 14-month-old son. since her son was born. We haven't had a day alone with her, which I guess is understandable because she is a new mom. We tried to include her in all the plans we had since having her child, but noticed she would always ask if we could change what the plan was to accommodate her baby coming too. This meant the plan was almost always a coffee shop. I genuinely didn't mind changing all of the plans to be more child-friendly, and just assumed she couldn't get her man or parents to watch her baby for a while. I called her a few weeks ago to ask if she wanted to come to a club with us, and she asked if we could go to a coffee shop instead so she could bring her baby. I asked if there was no one who could watch her baby. She lives with her husband who works from home, and her in-laws, to which she replied that she'll feel insane mom guilt if she goes to a club and leaves her baby at home. I said I understood but that I really needed a night out, but we could do coffee the next day. She texted me the following day asking why I had such a big problem having her child around. I was baffled because I'm the one constantly changing plans to accommodate her son. But I asked her to understand me for one night. I really needed a night out and didn't want to be in a coffee shop. She sounded irritated by my reasoning but left it at that. Now, the girls' trip is coming in a week. I didn't really tell her about the trip because I knew she couldn't come alone, but she heard it from another friend. She jokingly asked why I didn't invite her, to which I laughed off because I felt so awkward. I told her she was welcome to come as always and I would love to have her there. I thought the call was an indication that she would come alone. She called the next day to ask if the resort we were going to be staying at was child-friendly. I said it wasn't, as we were looking for more of a club atmosphere, and that's what it was. She then said she couldn't make it then if it wasn't going to properly accommodate her son in the activities we do. I said I understand and that I'm sorry. I got a call from her older sister last night calling me all sorts of names because I didn't want my best friend's son to come on the girls' trip and that I'm being childish. I'm genuinely still in such shock and don't know how to even type what I'm feeling right now. We haven't had proper fun together in ages because it's either we're too busy caring for my best friend's baby, or a few of us were missing because of COVID, etc. This is the first time we've all been together since we graduated undergrad and started our masters. We've been having hectic years and just wanted one carefree holiday. So, am I the idiot for wanting our annual girls' trip to actually be a girls' trip? Edit. I tried to hint once that I wanted my birthday a few months ago to be just us, but she laughed it off and made a joke about how her and her son are attached by the hip and she couldn't leave him. She asked if we could minimize how much alcohol there was going to be so she could bring her son. Comments before the update. Not the idiot. Her having a child doesn't mean the rest of you all have to change your lifestyle. She made a choice and has to live with that choice, where she could not act crazy and just let someone else watch her son for an evening. Not the idiot. It goes both ways. You make an effort to accommodate her needs. Does she make one to accommodate yours? Granted, she is a mother now, so her priority is her child. Did you cut her off when she was pregnant? No. Did you cut her off after the third time? I assume there's been 3 occasions from the way you describe it. She asked you to change your wants to accommodate her needs. No, you accommodated her. Did you simply not invite her on the holiday? Not by the sounds of it. It sounds like you extended the invitation and she rejected it as it is. Update. So we went on our girls' trip and had the best week we had since before COVID started. We all kind of chose to not speak about the issue with our friend and just have a good time, and sort out the issue when we got back home. The day after we got back, I texted my best friend and asked if we could come over and see her and her son, and also to deliver the gifts we had gotten during the trip. She read the message and hadn't replied for 3 days. I called her husband just to ask if she was okay, and he said she was, and he doesn't know why she wasn't responding to me. Anyway, I decided not to double text as I didn't want to nag her. She texted back after 3 days with an essay-like response explaining how disappointed she felt that I thought she would give up days of motherhood just to drink and be a skank. Good to know what she thinks of us then, lol. She ended the message by saying she and her husband are trying for another baby and she doesn't have the mental capacity to deal with our crap. After which, she left all the group chats and blocked us all on every social media platform. So, that's it, I guess. Best friend since year 4, and this is how our friendship has ended. Still baffled, to be honest, but maybe it was for the best. Hoping I'll see the good in this one day. Thank you so much to everyone that responded, and Happy New Year, lovelies. Not the idiot. She will regret this. One day she'll look back and realize she fricked up. Friends are hard to come by as you get older, and she just closed the door on you all. She is incredibly selfish. You did nothing wrong. You were a very good friend to her. Not the idiot. Most people grow apart from their childhood friendships, and sometimes it happens very abruptly. She made the decision to have a child at a very young age. That is a life-changing thing, and it makes sense that she is giving up a lot of things that people experience in their 20 seconds. The problem is that she expected her entire group of friends to give up those same things to accommodate her and reacted coldly when you all continued to live your lives the same way most people do in their early 20 seconds. Now for the next story. Am I the idiot for wanting my ex-husband to help me pack up our late daughter's bedroom instead of my current partner? I am a 33-year-old woman who 6 years ago lost my 2-year-old daughter to leukemia. My husband and I tried to make things work, but the grief of losing her and the emotions at the time made our relationship unsalvageable, and a year after her death we divorced. I kept her room as it was, as I like to go there sometimes to sit and remember her and be around her things, minus the few keepsakes her father took with him when we divorced so he could remember her too. A while after we divorced, I met my current partner, and now 3 years into our relationship I am 29 weeks pregnant with a little boy. I am equally excited and terrified about this as I'm so scared of going through that kind of pain again. I live in a 2-bedroom home, so obviously my daughter's room needs to be packed up, and I accepted that, though it wasn't easy. My partner offered to help me do so, and I told him if he wanted to help it'd be appreciated, but that I'd also asked my ex-husband to help me so we could decide together what we each wanted to keep, donate, or toss. This upset my partner as he doesn't like the idea of my ex-husband being around for such a lengthy time, and that since he is my partner I should have asked only him, and told me I could just put aside a few random things for my ex. I tried to explain to him that my daughter was also my ex-husband's daughter, so he had a right to be there for this, and reminded him that if he wanted to help he could of course be there too. He doesn't want to be around my ex-husband, however, so denied this and has been upset with me all night over this. Is it truly unreasonable that I'd ask my ex-husband to be a part of this? Comments before the update. Not the idiot. I'm married to a woman that had children prior to our marriage. I have a stepson and stepdaughter. I absolutely despise her ex-husband and he despises me. Neither of us have one single positive thing to say about the other, and we are just cordial enough to be in the same room during events, graduations, get-togethers, family stuff, you know. Because we are adults, but the interaction ends there. There is absolutely no way under these circumstances that I would even begin to express anything but support and understanding. This is something so unbearably sad and traumatizing that I question that he is even worth being married to if this was his response. As the new husband, I'd be grateful and flattered that I was invited to participate in it. Update. My partner did not back up on his displeasure over my ex-husband coming round to help packing up our late daughter's bedroom, and he said some very hurtful things regarding me, my ex-husband, and my late daughter that I will not post here as it'd probably get my post removed. He then told me if I didn't call off my ex-husband coming round for this he'd break up with me as he wouldn't put up with it. Clearly thinking I'd back down on this as I wouldn't want to be a single parent, and he seemed so freaking smug as he made this threat. By this point I was already seeing red. He could insult me all he wanted, but the things he said about my daughter. I told him to get the frick out of my house and never come back then, and kicked him out, throwing his stuff after him in a fit of rage. Nothing breakable, don't worry. And that was that. I then spent the day crying over all of this. A few days later my ex-husband came around and we packed up our daughter's room, and during it he asked me if my partner was around. I explained the situation to him and he was so pissed off on my behalf, and he spent the rest of the afternoon comforting me about it. He then would call me every day to check if I needed anything or help with anything as I'm starting to get less agile, and began to spend more time around to help out. The last 2 nights he has actually been sleeping on my sofa in case I need anything during the night, as I went into labor with our daughter a few weeks further along than I am right now. And he keeps fretting about what if that happens while I'm alone. Last night he asked me if I'd consider going out for something to eat with him to see about possibly restarting things. No pressure, just to test the waters, and I agreed as having him around so much and being so helpful. It reminded me of all our good times and why I fell in love with him in the first place. We are taking it slowly, one day at a time. Ironic that my ex-partner's jealousy and actions may have caused exactly what he wanted to avoid. On the subject of my ex-partner, he has not been around since or called me, and I am getting a lawyer involved to check what I should do in regards to our son moving forward. It was an easy split as we weren't married. The house is in my name and always has been, and he'd only moved in after I got pregnant by accident. Not the idiot. Time can heal a lot. Obviously you still grieve the loss of your daughter, but maybe the time to grieve apart for you and your ex was needed. Good luck as you move forward. Not the idiot. Honestly, I'm sorry to hear how badly your ex-boyfriend acted. You lost a child, as did your ex-husband, and even if you broke up you were both her parents. Packing up her room without him would have probably broken his heart. You were entirely reasonable, and the ex-boyfriend responded in an atrocious manner. Am I the idiot for not allowing my oldest daughter to use my home as her wedding venue because of my ex-wife? I'm in a pretty bad situation right now. When my stepdaughter got married 2 years ago, she used our home as the wedding venue. We have a meadow in our backyard that is able to accommodate a large number of people, as well as an empty clean barn that can be set up for dinner tables. My daughter was supposed to marry at another location last year, but because of the pandemic, the venue shut down permanently. She's now asked to use my home for the wedding, but I told her my issues with that. I had a restraining order against her mother, my ex, and a few members of her family after threats and harassment were directed towards my wife and myself. The restraining order expired mid-last year, but we haven't heard from them since, but I stayed firm in my decision. This has upset my daughter greatly, and she's screamed at me, which she's never done. I offered to give her $15,000 for an alternative venue, but now she's adamant about it being our home. I feel extremely uncomfortable giving my ex and her family access to my home because that's where the washrooms will be. My daughter has put this issue on Facebook, and I now have all of my extended family against me. This has also stirred up my ex and her family against me. And worse is that my wife and stepdaughter are now being accused of trying to ruin my daughter's wedding when they haven't played any part in it. I'm planning on giving in and letting my daughter use our home for the wedding later this year, but I'm going to tell my wife and stepdaughter not to be around for it, which I'm sure is going to create a bunch of other issues. Am I the idiot? Update to my post. I messaged my daughter about the outdoor trailer bathrooms and she refused and said it was a disgusting idea. She then accused me of treating her worse than my stepdaughter and that I play favorites and that I'm a terrible father. She did not want the wedding at our home anymore and hung up. She is no longer picking up my calls. I got an angry call from my mother who says she is hosting her wedding instead, and that I will not be welcomed at the wedding. My father will be walking my daughter down the aisle instead of me. Thanks everyone for the advice. I appreciate it, but I feel like I've made the biggest mistake of my life. I am completely heartbroken. Comments before the update. Not the idiot. Go renew the restraining order if your ex and her family are harassing you, and explain to your daughter that she can either have the wedding at your home without her mother and her side of the family, or she can accept the $15,000 and have it elsewhere. But for personal safety reasons you will not let her mother into your home. Otherwise, rent porta potties. They have some super fancy ones for wedding venues. Trailers don't look or smell like porta potties with a washroom. Not the idiot. But how is it that you raised your, presumably, adult daughter in such a way that when you don't give her what she wants, she screams at you and goes after you on Facebook? And why do you now think the right thing to do is to give in to her antics by letting her do the wedding at your house after all? Update. I've had many messages asking me for an update that I've only noticed after logging back into this account. I have a fairly positive update. My daughter's wedding took place in October last year. After a few months of my daughter refusing to talk to me, my wife saw how I was being affected by the situation and said I should just let my daughter use our home without any restrictions. That we should lock up our valuables and hope for the best. I was extremely hesitant, but at my wife's insistence, I arranged a meeting at my mother's home and made the offer. I was immediately told that it was too late and that the new invitations were already sent out and the wedding would be happening at my mother's property. But my daughter asked for the $15,000 I originally offered for an alternative venue to be used to renovate my mother's home a little for the wedding. I just accepted that this was the best it was going to get and gave her the money. My daughter still didn't warm up to me after this and would only reply to texts occasionally. Then a month before the wedding, I was told to come to the wedding without my wife. My daughter said that similar to how my wife and I felt, her mother and some members of her maternal family felt uncomfortable being around us due to the expired restraining order. She said she was willing to fight them to have her father at the wedding. But my wife, stepdaughter and her husband were not invited. I was incredibly disappointed. I wanted to confront my daughter and potentially not go to the wedding at all if my wife wasn't invited. But my wife said that there's too much bad blood and I should just attend the wedding quietly for my daughter's sake. I ended up attending the wedding alone and left once dinner was done. While I got to see my daughter get married, my heart feels heavy that it was such a conflict-filled situation. Even having me walking her down the aisle became such a touchy subject that she just ended up having her half-brother walk her down the aisle instead. When I went to congratulate my daughter before I left, she angrily told me that she should have just eloped because of me and my ex, and that it's disgusting that her own parents ruined every aspect of her wedding, that she can't wait to build a life separate from everyone. I apologized and cried on my way home. A part of me is happy that my daughter is still somewhat talking to me, but I do regret putting her under so much stress. It's not her fault her parents can't get along. I'm just hopeful that we can slowly start repairing our relationship. Not the idiot. I'm very confused about why your own parents and sister are on your daughter's, her mom's side in this situation. Is there information being left out? Regardless, I am sorry to hear about what you're going through. I hope things work out for the better with you and your daughter. Not the idiot. What part of this update was positive? Your daughter threw a fit because you didn't want to invite people who harassed you and your family into your home, but she's perfectly fine taking your money, uninviting your wife and her family who've done nothing to her, and not letting you walk her down the aisle because her mother has a problem with it. Exactly what concessions did your ex make for the sake of her daughter's wedding? Doesn't sound like she fought for you to be there at all. Should Opus have even gone to the wedding? Let me know in the comments. Am I the idiot for not reconsidering my sister-in-law for guardianship of our kids after she initially said no? My wife, female 30, and I, male 30, have 2 kids under the age of 4. We haven't come to a decision on who would be the kids' guardians if something were to happen to us. There are 5 realistic parties: my sister and husband, my sister-in-law, single, my second sister, single, brother-in-law and GF, long-term relationship 5 years plus, my father-in-law and mother-in-law. Some are closer to our kids than others. Mother-in-law, father-in-law, and sister-in-law are the closest because they live so close. So we decided to ask each of our siblings if they would want guardianship over the kids. Only my sister-in-law said no because she is younger, upper 20s, and she said wasn't sure about kids yet. No hard feelings there. Sister-in-law is great with the kids in the aunt role and honestly are the kids' favorite person right now. This weekend sister-in-law was visiting and the guardianship topic was being discussed. I was pushing for my sister and husband to be the first choice because they are just great people overall and other reasons I won't get into. The condition for anyone we choose as the guardian has to move to our house or stay in town near our FIL. My sister, husband have lived overseas for years and I didn't want the kids to be uprooted. My sister-in-law pointed out they likely wouldn't be willing to do this because they would need new jobs and the costs of moving would be too much. Side note, we live below our means and are big on saving for early retirement. I quickly stated the guardians wouldn't have to worry about money and I would have them covered. Sister-in-law asked what I meant. At this point I started to discuss the financial aspect. Between our financials and life insurance policies, whoever took the kids wouldn't have to worry about any expenses. On top of the insurance, I'm planning on setting up our will to cover all expenses for the guardians and the kids. I would leave the kids funds for college and extra for wedding, home or whatever else they choose. For the guardians, I would basically give them our retirement plan with certain conditions. In the end, hopefully anything left would be passed on to our kids. At this point, my sister-in-law said she wanted to be considered for guardianship again. In her words, if I could be a stay-at-home mom, I would take the kids 100%. On the spot, I said, you already made your decision, and it was no. My wife backed up sister-in-law, but I stood firm that sister-in-law already said no. To me, she clearly changed her mind C of the money. Her original decision was no C. She wasn't sure about kids yet. Not that she couldn't afford kids. Things went back and forth and it ended a little sour. Outside of this, I've never had an issue with sister-in-law and we actually get along really well. I'm debating if I should reconsider or stick by my gut. So am I the idiot that I'm not reconsidering my sister-in-law to be a potential guardian for my kids? Edit. Change sister-in-law saying she wanted to be child-free to being undecided at the time. Showed my wife the post. She is saying the sister-in-law never said she wanted to be child-free but was undecided on children because of the costs. We have talked to her about how expensive the kids have been and that is the reason we aren't having any more. All siblings agreed they would move to our town when we first asked around. Not sure if this matters ... but if I had a choice before talking to everyone it would be 1. Sister plus husband. 2. Sister-in-law, single. 3. Brother-in-law plus husband. 4. Sister, single. 5. FIL. Comments before the update. You're the idiot. The only factors that should play into this are the best interests of your children. Frankly, the fact that sister-in-law said no when she was anticipating having to be the sole breadwinner for your children and being a single parent demonstrates that she took your request quite seriously. Reconsidering after she finds out that financial support is available is reasonable. And your implications about gold digging are rude and uncalled for. No idiots here, but consider that your sister-in-law only wanted to be child-free because the financial burden of children is daunting and she worried she wouldn't be able to provide the financial stability that kids deserve. Imagine suddenly being the parent to 2 children without any ability to plan financially. That's terrifying. I think you should at least consider your sister-in-law, given that you hadn't given her the details when you asked the first time. That's a huge piece of information to leave out. Update. Thought I would give an update on this situation since there have been a few revelations. There was some fallout with my sister-in-law which I'll get to. After further discussion with my wife, we decided her parents would make the best guardians if we were to pass. For some reason, if they were unable to take the kids, my sister and husband would take over guardianship. We spoke with all of them together and everyone was on board. I explained the financial part to both FIL, sister husbands, and there were no issues or concerns. Our family financial advisor worked with our lawyer to set up the financial side. In short, living expenses are paid for, guardians get paid nicely, and the rest gets split between the kids. We noted sister-in-law would be included for family expenses of special occasions and trips, vacations, which we thought was fair since she is a part of the kids' lives already. Now for the fallout with sister-in-law. We spoke with sister-in-law separately and explained why we chose the other family members as guardians. It was really about the 2-parent household dynamic. The whole thing about her saying no before learning about the money is an afterthought. She wasn't happy with our choice and started explaining why her being a single parent shouldn't be considered. I just explained with all else being equal we would want a 2-parent household over single parents. I did say if she were to get into a committed long-term relationship we would be open to reconsidering. Sister-in-law was upset but not much else was said. Since the conversation with sister-in-law things have been strained unfortunately. With our finances being partially revealed the relationship with sister-in-law really changed. When she hangs out she has talked inappropriately to our kids in my opinion. Stuff like wouldn't it be great if she was a permanent babysitter or wouldn't have her around for family vacations all the time. Also talks bad about my sister and husband to the kids. Whenever we get together with our in-laws, sister-in-law expects us to pay for everyone's meals each time, and if we don't pay there is always a comment from sister-in-law. Before we would switch off between FIL, MIL and us, sister-in-law never paid for meals. The straw was my old sister-in-law's dog that needed something like a $5,000 surgery. She came straight to us to pay and I said we would not pay for the surgery. She told us we were heartless to not pay for it. I explained to my wife that it was a hard no and my sister-in-law guilt-tripped my wife. I still refused. Overall, I hate the way my sister-in-law is acting now. We won't be seeing her for a few weeks, so that's nice. Next time she does come by I'll be speaking with her about how she treats us and the kids now. Basically, she either can stop acting this way around the kids and stop guilting my wife into paying for everything, or we start cutting her out of our family lives. So that's about where it stands now. Not great. If I had to do it over again, I would have just chosen the guardians without speaking with everyone and let them find out about the financial part after our deaths. Not the idiot. Wow, she has really shown her true colors. It's all about the money. What is really sad is she assumes your kids would be a burden and is only really interested if she is handsomely compensated. You cannot trust her to be an adult around the kids, and she feels entitled to your money. She has dug her own grave over this. She will reap what she is sowing. Not the idiot. My parents had it set up that we would only go to two parents' households. My great uncles and great aunts agreed to be our guardians in case of our parents' death. However, it was clear both sets of uncle and aunt had to be alive, cause if one couple lost their spouse by the time our parents died, we would go to the other uncle and aunt couple because it was important to my parents for us kids to have a two parents household. I think your wife and you did the best with what you wanted for your children, even to the point where they would have shelter, education, and potential weddings provided for, and keeping guardians from struggling financially and raising the children. That is amazing. But what I love is the fact you have many choices in guardians. Families are amazing when everyone is getting along. Which brings me to your sister-in-law. From your updated post, it sounds like she's in for the finance more than the kids. Even though she loves them, the fact that she expects you to pay for her dog's surgery on top of dinner paid for, then bad-mouthing to the kids about you. Nope. If she was my sister-in-law, she wouldn't be a candidate for guardianship. Her fault for losing out.
Am I the idiot for saying my husband is a good father? When he was in his early 20s, my husband got a girl pregnant. They were casual dating in college. They had a lot of mutual friends. He didn't want to be a dad and told her as much, but she was adamant about keeping the baby. He was supportive through the pregnancy, but was clear he didn't want to be involved. He wanted to renounce his rights, but ended up with an agreement where he still pays child support but doesn't do visitation nor has involvement in any parental decisions. The girl is now 12. He hasn't met her nor plans to ever do so. I met him 8 years ago. We've been married for almost 7 years. He told me about the whole having a bio child out there very early on. I am fine with it. It is sad that a child came to the world under those circumstances, but I don't think he was wrong for choosing not to be involved. We now have a 5-year-old son. My husband has always been wonderful to me. That's why I fell in love with him. He was great during the pregnancy and birth, and has been doting on our son and me ever since. I think he's a wonderful dad and husband. The problem: 2 of his friends married their college girlfriends, who are friends with his bio daughter's mother. On 3 occasions in conversations where I said my husband is a wonderful father, one of them said something snarky and mean like, "Yeah," to only one of his children. Over the weekend we attended one of their kids' birthday parties. I was chatting to another mom about motherhood and said that it's easier when you have a good team player in your spouse. The homeowner mom chimed in to say, loudly, "If only the mother of his other child had the same." Later I confronted her in the kitchen, said I was very tired of her and other friend comments about my husband, that she didn't need to invite us to things or spend time with us if she didn't want to, but it was super disrespectful to be constantly insulting him as a father. She told me she initially liked me but finds it distasteful and rude that I keep praising my husband as a good father when I'm well aware that he isn't, that she will always make sure to correct me because it's not okay that he got away with what he did, and he now gets to play happy family with me and our son. The conversation went south from then on, and of course we left. The other mum friend texted me yesterday to tell me she completely backs up what the other said and that I'm horrible for marrying and having a kid with a deadbeat, and on top of it to praise him as a good dad. I have no doubts of my feelings. My husband has been and is great with our son and with me. I guess I never thought how my words could be insensitive towards his bio daughter and her mother, whom I've never met. But am I the idiot for occasionally saying my husband is a good father when talking to people? Should I stop? Now for comments before the update. You're the idiot. I can understand that he is a good father to your child, but you can't and really shouldn't forget that he has another one just because he wasn't feeling like it. Yes, technically it's his choice. What you both are lacking is empathy. Not the idiot. I understand their loyalty, but if it's such a problem for them, they should have ended the friendship ages ago. He made the responsible decision and chose not to step up as a father because he wasn't ready. If it's acceptable for the mother of the child to put a baby up for adoption for the same reasons, then why is the expectation different for the father? He's not a deadbeat. He's contributing financially and has remained consistent since the beginning. Those women are entitled to their opinions, but it doesn't make them right. It does, however, make them toxic, especially when everyone has accepted the situation except for them. Update. The verdict on my original post was not the idiot, but people were raising concerns about my husband's bio daughter's well-being. I also got advised to cut contact with this woman and to tell my husband, Tim, what they were saying about him. So I spoke with Tim after I posted here. He decided to speak with his friend, John, about what his wife, Jane, was doing, and we will cut Jane off. After Tim spoke to John, we learned the truth. This wasn't about Tim or me at all. Turns out while still in college, John and Jane also had an unplanned pregnancy, and he wanted an abortion, but she didn't. They were still discussing it when she had a miscarriage, early stage. They never told people because she didn't want to. My husband never knew about this and felt terrible for them. While they moved on, and eventually got married and had kids, it's obvious she isn't over it. Since our son was born, she has been occasionally unloading her feelings onto Tim because she feels this is how it would have gone for her if she didn't miscarry. This is what John said. John confronted her. They had a big fight. He is staying in our guest house now, but we hope they will work through it for the sake of their family. She hates us even more now, though. The most important, John contacted bio daughter's mom, Callie, after fighting with Jane. He told her everything and asked her to stop feeding Jane's irrational feelings, because she was taking them out on us instead of him. Callie got my name from John and contacted me on social media wanting to speak to me mother to mother, to tell me she didn't want anything more from Tim than what they had agreed on, that she never fed anything to Jane regarding him, they don't even talk that often, and wanted no part of this mess. We got to chatting and she's a lovely person. She is married and her husband, Sal, has been in their daughter's, Ellie, life since she was about 2, she calls him dad. They also have another daughter. So I told Tim all this. After some reflection and back and forths, we ended up having a video call, the 4 of us, Tim and I, Callie and Sal, just this past weekend. It was awkward at first, but we talked about Ellie mostly. We saw pictures of her, beautiful girl, and it was decided that Tim will renounce paternity and Sal will adopt Ellie officially. But Ellie will keep her trust fund/college fund set up by us so they can focus on building one up for their other child. It seems this was the main reason they hadn't approached him about it, which is sad because they could have been an official family long ago if they'd only asked, but we understand. This will take some time to be finalized, and we still need to consider if and when our children want to meet, but we are all happy. There was even a very nice moment when Sal told Tim, "You have a lovely family," and Tim replied, "Thanks, so do you." So thanks to Reddit. If I hadn't posted here, maybe none of this would be happening, not the idiot. I cannot understand why you're getting this much hate here. Your husband did all the right things, made his standpoint clear, provided and acted maturely. And you definitely have never been the idiot in this story either, because your husband is not a deadbeat, and your friend was wrong to harp on it so much, no matter her own trauma. And most importantly, it was not right of her to comment on this whole situation at all because either of you asked her for her opinion, not the idiot. Sounds like a set of level-headed adults came together to discuss the well-being of a kid in their care. If only more disputes between adults were sorted this way, the world would be a better place. I'm glad that Ellie gets to make her relationship with her dad official. Now for the next story. Am I the idiot for leaving an outing after I was upset? This weekend, I, female 20, decided that I wanted to join my siblings and my aunt for an outing in town. While sightseeing, my younger brother told everyone a lie about me, which everyone else laughed at me for, but I did not find it funny at all. I decided that I wanted to leave afterward, and I told them I would see them later at home. Later, when everyone else came home, my oldest younger sister and my aunt were mad at me because I left and my disappearance hurt someone's feelings. To note, this is not the first time I had done this, as the last time I left because they made jokes about me being too sensitive to take some roast. To give context, I was bullied by my siblings for many years when we were younger. They eventually apologized and I forgave them then. I decided to give some distance between myself and my siblings and my younger aunt. I wanted to try to give my siblings and my aunt another chance because we made up. So, am I the idiot? Now for comments before the update, not the idiot. I have a zero-tolerance policy for bullies too. If leaving is the best way to protect yourself, that's just what you have to do. The self-doubt now shows that you'd probably benefit from practicing some assertion. You should look into therapy, not the idiot. So they bullied you, apologized, you forgave them, so they now believe that that's a pass for continuing to bully and pick on you. Regardless of if you're sensitive or not, you're an adult and can choose who you want to spend your time around. Them getting upset and offended at you removing yourself from the situation is bullshit on their part to try and get you to feel guilty. Update. It's been a while since I made my post, so I decided it was time to make an update since the situation happened in March 2021. So basically after day, I held my tongue and distanced myself from my family. Whenever they asked to go on outings during the summer, I simply refused and explained why. This eventually came to a head when my younger sister, second oldest, left to go to our aunt's house for a sleepover, and I never talked to her or my aunt. Both of them were understandably hurt, and my mom had to intervene by letting me know one day when we went to a store to talk it out. There were a lot of tears and everything was resolved nicely. Fast forward to November 2022. I am in the room with my sisters right now until I have enough money to rent a place on my own, which hopefully should be around 2025 or 2026. We had a few fights since then, but they always resolved quickly, and I am seeing a therapist too. Overall, I want to thank everyone who read my post and offered suggestions, not the idiot. Glad you're not letting them off the hook for being jerks. Now for the next story. Am I the idiot for being upset that I'm not adopted? I, female 14, was always told that I was adopted. This makes sense. I've never questioned it. I have two dads, who I call Abba/Papa and Dad/Daddy, who I love so much. Like so much. I know I might come off as resentful in this post, but I'm just really hurt. Whenever I brought up my biological parents in the past, my parents just completely shut down. My Abba will kind of just go quiet and pretend like he didn't hear me, and my dad always just changes the topic or tells me we'll talk about it when I'm older. Recently I started poking around to figure out some stuff about my bio parents. I didn't inform either of my dads. I didn't want to hurt their feelings or make them upset or make them think I'm ungrateful, and long story short, I found my birth certificate. As you can probably tell from the title of this post, surprise surprise, I'm not fully adopted. My Abba's name was on the certificate. I did more digging and found a marriage record between him and the woman's name on the certificate, who is my birth mother. It was dated a few years before my dads got married. I was just so hurt. And confused? Do they think I'm super shallow or something, and would resent my dad cause we're not related? And why wouldn't they tell me about my mom, who's alive and well, BTW? I found her on social media. Married. 2 kids. I guess I started getting really quiet and keeping to myself because I didn't know what to do with this, and I was keeping it all inside. And then I was having this argument with my Abba, and I kinda just snapped something about him not telling me about my birth mom and stuff. I didn't mean to reveal what I knew, but I did. And now they're both upset, and this is just a giant mess, and I feel like such an idiot. But I also think I'm kinda justified? AITA. The friends I've told about this are divided. I wish I had never looked into this. Am I the idiot? Edit. IDK if this really matters, but a lot of people are bringing up cultural views on gay marriage and adoption over time. So, I grew up in America, not near the Bible Belt. My dad is from England and moved here when he was a young adult. My Abba bounced around everywhere growing up. He met my dad when he was on a trip to London, but ultimately spent most of his time in the States. Now for comments before the update. No idiots here. But I do think they handled this poorly. Your parents probably wanted you to love your dad as much as your Abba. Again, I don't think they handled this well, but I don't think it was malicious. Not the idiot. You are allowed to be angry when people you love mislead you, even when it may have been done with the best of intentions. I can understand the reasoning why your parents told you that you were adopted, as they wanted equal roles as your parents, and there is the chance that knowing that one of them was your biological father may have changed that. Or there may be a reason why your biological mother has not been a part of your life. Update. I wrote down all my thoughts beforehand and ended up sitting down with my dad a few days after the fight to talk. I used our statements and told them how not being honest about being adopted really hurt me and made me feel like they didn't trust me. It made me feel like they thought I was shallow and would love one of them more than the other, which I don't, and made me question if we were all really as close as I thought we were. I felt it damaged our relationship. They were really understanding, and the conversation got heavy and emotional. There was a lot of crying. I'm not going to go over exact details out of respect for their privacy, but here's the gist of it. My Abba, birth father, and dad, adopted father, were friends ever since they were teenagers. Whereas my dad was openly out of the closet, my Abba was not. Abba ended up marrying my birth mother and had 2 kids. A girl, and then 5 years later they had me. My older sister, whom I never knew, ended up dying in a super traumatic way when I was only a baby. Their marriage fell apart, they split, and my bio mom couldn't process it and ended up hospitalized in a mental institution for a little bit. My ABBA moved in with my now dad, and they both worked together to take care of me and worked through the grieving together. After a while, my ABBA accepted that he was bisexual, and then after a few years they got married. Even before they were together, I apparently got super clingy to my dad as a baby. He was the only one who could calm me down when I wanted my mom, and they were worried telling me would damage our relationship. They were planning on telling me when I was 5 or 6, but kept putting it off until it was seemingly too late. Instead, they just buried the past and hoped it would never come up. After my bio mom got out of the hospital, my ABBA and dad both tried to help her get back on her feet and set up visitation, but she cut all contact with them and signed away her parental rights. That was the last time they spoke to her. They had no idea that she was still alive, let alone had kids. I'm still kinda hurt, even though I understand why they did it. I do think our relationship got partially damaged, but it'll get better with time. We're going into family counseling. The next step is reaching out to my bio mom. I'm debating whether or not to do it. I don't want to bring up any trauma for her. My dads are leaving the choice up to me, but would like to be involved in the process, not the idiot. My advice, before reaching out to bio mom or deciding to, do some individual therapy. She may refuse to talk to you and you need to be mentally prepared for that. Or she may see you, but you just cannot know your reaction right now. Therapy can help you decide and prepare mentally for the possibilities. I'm glad you were able to talk to your dads and that you are going into family therapy. But individual therapy is a good idea here too. I wish you the best of luck.